separated.
Hey, the man you're disrespecting me. Take him out.
You gotta keep them separated.
Hey, don't pay no mind. Your luxury cheating won't be doing any time. Hey, come out and play.
And welcome to the Butchershop. Yeah.
What we have here, we're going to get into some local politics, recent politics, okay? What we have here is failure to communicate, okay? You got to keep them separated. Evidently, George Floyd and Officer Colvin didn't get the memo that they were playing opposing scripts in a high-stakes, racially motivated movie. That's a massive failure, folks. If you are a black man that doesn't know that spitting on the sidewalk can get you killed while in police custody, or a white cop who is unaware that killing a black man will have serious consequences, then that means that you didn't read the script. Just as the line says from the soundtrack you just heard, one got wasted and the other's a waste. And I'm sorry to be the one to tell you people that. I really am. I wish this was, the Wizard of Oz. I really do, but it's really not, okay? Like any other good movie, and Friends, we've seen it all. Every one of you has seen that video of what happened. There's plenty of red herrings out there to distract the viewer and hopefully keep them in suspense. It's been revealed to us that two actors, write that down, there'll be a quiz later, knew and had worked with each other over a long period of time. There are simply some people to whom this means something, okay? Anybody who has raised a family with more than 2 children will realize that this doesn't necessarily signify a damn thing. All right, we have a license plate that simply says police. Any person with observational power of an 8-year-old who regularly drives through or lives in Minneapolis knows that many of the city's police cars have this plate. It's simply a move to simplify the license of police cars. It's nothing else, okay? Some people find it odd that so-called officers, and I use the term loosely, were not communicating or trying to get George into the car. The same confused group of people also find it odd that no backup was called. I asked my writing partner, Dr. Theo, 10-year-old grandson, okay, to do the math on this for me. After giving the matter a due considerable amount of consideration, he said it was a trick question. He said no backup was called, so why would the officers even communicate with George or even put him in the car? Folks, when a 10-year-old can unmask a deliberately laid cognitive snare, it's time to admit that sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Even if the dope dealer is trying to sell you it as a blunt. Perhaps the most telling and threadbare through line in this entire plot is Mr. Floyd's toxicology report includes the presence of fentanyl and meth. The color of Mr. Floyd's skin and the toxicology report combined act to reveal something more powerful than the establishment which created this event, in stark contrast to the reality of what we tell ourselves exists. This event, in and of itself, lays bare the dark and terrible curse over the shadows, the illusion of a free and democratic society. The fact that you gotta keep them separated. Gentlemen, your thoughts.
Wow. I mean, I didn't know you were just going to get down to the rat killing right away, Billy. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Bill the Butcher.
Make you pop your eyes out of your head for this. No, because I'm tired of it. Ted, I'm tired of it. I can't go down to the 7-Eleven and buy a Pepsi Cola right now because of all these dumbasses. Please continue.
Well, I actually don't go to the 7-Eleven to buy my Pepsi Cola because I don't drink Pepsi Cola. But I guess if I'm trying to relate to your frustration. Could you pick another example?
I use Pepsi Cola because I'm an American and you're a communist. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, don't you know they're American communists?
You don't drink Pepsi Cola?
Of course I drink Pepsi Cola. Of course I don't. Of course I drink Pepsi Cola. Me saying I don't drink Pepsi Cola is like that guy from Saudi that you the Domino's driver delivers pork pizzas to. He says he doesn't eat it, but he eats it. And ladies and gentlemen, we know this because we were Domino's pizza delivery drivers, Billy and I, way back in the day. Were we not, Billy? Were we not?
Hey, for the record, so they don't show up at your doorstep. Ted drinks Pepsi Cola when he can get it. Okay, we do. What it is, Ted is a liberal Democrat. I am a conservative Republican, and we've been riding together for 50 years. Deal with it.
Well, actually, I'm going to explain the secret of it to the rest of you in case you think to yourself, hey, I will catch on to that idea. That's a great idea. A liberal and a Democrat writing together. It really is a good idea, folks. And so if you want to get yourself into it, I just want to tell you right now, the real secret in it lies in this. And that is that a Democrat is more likely to drink scotch. And a conservative is more likely to drink bourbon. Now, these are mainly...
Careful, I drink more scotch. Go ahead.
Okay, so all right, I'll get it right down to the bare bones of it. A Democrat is likely to put something in his drink besides the alcohol, and a conservative is most likely to drink the alcohol by itself with maybe a chaser.
You know what my mama told me, and I wrote a whole article about this. Never drink blended whiskey because gay people drink blended whiskey. So I drink straight up whiskey. Well, lately I've gone to Canadian Mist and everything. But mainly you drink straight up whiskey. You pour a shot in the glass, nothing in it to dilute it, and you have something to wash it down. Like I use a Miller Lite, to wash it down and everything. But here's the thing, Ted. Here's the things that's separating us, and this is what this show's all about. We need to stop separating ourselves. I don't hate...
But how are we going to do that? How are we going to do that when we're so different, Billy? How are we going to do that?
Well, okay. May I speak? Okay?
Yeah.
If I don't have anything against liberals. My attitude, and you know this, I spent last night and all day yesterday getting ready for this show with you. And with you and your wife, Donna. And y'all are liberals and I am a conservative. Okay. My idea of a liberal is someone who will try something new, and if it doesn't work, you fall back to what did work and you go on from there. That's my idea. My idea of a liberal is not crazy, radical nonsense. Open the borders. That's crazy. You don't open the damn borders. Are you out of your mind? Give free checks to all the illegal aliens. Are you out of your mind? Nobody wants to do that. But still, like what President Trump said, well, I'm going to unleash the army. How are you going to do that, dude? I'm a conservative. How are you going to do that? The last time that happened was 1863 when Lincoln shelled New York City during the draft rise. You can't do that. You can't do that. That's absolute nonsense. You can't do that.
Is that the question that surfaces first in your mind? Is how he's going to do it?
Well, the thing is nobody challenges what's coming out of the White House right now. And everybody's going to think I'm a liberal when I say this, but I'm not. Okay, just because the president says it, it doesn't make it so. In my home state of Utah and everything, we got this stuff under control. We really do. We have this stuff under control, and we're not hurting anybody. And of course, a couple of people got killed. You know, you have stuff happen, but a couple of people. But we don't have this problem. We don't have this problem in Austin. They surprised us a couple of nights ago. Ted, they burned down our Coyote Ugly and a couple other bars that you and I have sat and had cocktails in, everything, and then we got it under control. We did that.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that in something other than a tech-centric way, okay? Let's talk about that in terms of the country itself, okay?
You don't want to talk tech-centric with these Yankees because they don't understand it.
That ain't what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there's a whole other nation out there other than Texas that is going through this along with Texas. And so we're all going through this together. And the question, so earlier today when you and I were talking this over, this is the conclusion that I reached, and that is that what happened was something that was naturally going to happen, given the climate that we live in.
Right.
I think that what you're looking at here is a black man and a white cop that were both tired of living the roles that they've been assigned by society. I think the white cop was sick and tired of being threatened, menaced, having to deal with this kind of crap on an everyday basis, whatever it was. I think he'd reached like the last straw. And you know, the fact that his wife divorced him on the same day that he was arrested has a lot to say about this. I mean, he had to have been some kind of an unpleasant fellow, I think, you know, that you felt afraid of. For a wife to divorce you on the day you get arrested for something that's going to send you to jail for a while.
You've got a point there. You have a strong point there, and I can't contest it. He got arrested and put in jail, and she got the hell out of Dodge right then. Please continue.
Cannot be reached for further comment at this particular time. I think what it is that this black man got tired of playing the role that society. Look, we have an establishment around us, guys. Anybody listening to what I'm saying, anybody that's listening to what I'm saying, let's at least agree that we have an establishment. And it's not the establishment we elected, it's the establishment that the people we elected built or hired or somehow or another put in place of themselves. Because as you can well see, all through the voting records, particularly in the last year and a half, I mean, you can look back farther than that, of course, but the last year and a half have been some sort of exemplary minor atomic explosion in this. People voting against the best interests of their districts. And I'm talking about senators and congressmen. And it goes all the way down to the state level and what's happening in the state. And any of you who are listening, I urge you, man, look into the particulars of what's going on in the infrastructure of your state, the school boards, even, okay, the mayors and even of small places, and their affiliations, who are their campaign contributors, And you begin, this awful thing begins to emerge, Billy, which tells me really that the looting that we're talking about that's associated with this event and those other events is really not just being done by the people who are out there setting fires. I think it's also being done online and in the media. I think there's another kind of looting going on.
Ted, here's the deal. If an elderly lady, and you answer me as a doctor, excuse me, if an elderly lady had come out of that car saying, I can't breathe, the officers would have called EMS immediately because obviously she was having a health problem, okay? This man, Mr. Ferguson, whatever his name is, got out of that car, and the first thing he said was, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Now, I don't care if he was doing fentanyl or meth or what. He said he couldn't breathe. That should have been a red flag for the police that he needed medical care right then, okay? Right then. He had a medical condition. And I've seen the autopsy reports, and the only thing they agree on him is that his cause of death was a cardiac event. A cardiac event. He was 46 years old. He was a big fat boy. Too many Big Macs, okay? And he obviously had done drugs and everything. When he said he couldn't breathe, that was a loud statement that he needed EMS assistance. Okay, that was a loud thing. It doesn't matter what his criminal history was. It doesn't matter what the color of his skin was. He needed EMS assistance. He probably would have died in the back seat of the police car on the way to the hospital. But they didn't go there. They didn't go there. This Chauvin, what's his name? Chauvin or Chauvin or whatever his name is. That son of a bitch.
Chauvin.
Anyway.
Chauvin.
Yeah,
Chauvin.
Yeah,
hey, just look, Billy. Think I know you're having trouble with the word, but I'm going to give you a trick to remembering it, and that is the word chauvinist. Okay, means a person who believes in male dominance over women. And so you're looking. I mean, it's a coincidence. It doesn't mean anything, but
All right,
okay.
all right. Whoever he was, he places his knee on this man's neck, okay? And he squashes him down. He squashes him down with the man already saying, I'm having trouble breathing. I'm having trouble breathing. And on the side of the police car is the words to serve and to protect. But they did not serve him. They did not serve him. They did not protect him. They kept their knees on him when he needed to get a breath of air. Now, he obviously had an underlying cardiac system that was failing, and they just kept it going and kept it going and kept it going because they didn't think it meant anything. This man's life meant nothing to them. Nothing to them.
Billy.
And they stomped his head into the dirt. That's what they did. And folks, I'm a Texas redneck. I'm a Texas redneck. And I see that this is wrong. Ted, your thoughts?
I was just going to say, I think you have forgotten your position in this. If you're going to default and say that you're going to take the liberal position, then I'll try to assume the conservative position here, although it would be very difficult, given the fact that our president has more or less been urging, has been setting an example of aggression, is what I would say. Now, I'm going to tell you what the basic principle of psychology is. Anybody who's listening to the sound of my voice, here's a free lesson. And it's probably one of the most valuable lessons you can learn, by the way. It's the first lesson you learn when you train to be a psychotherapist. And that is that frustration equals aggression. Now, it's frustrating to these black people, as we know from Kaepernick's behavior on the field, that black men are dying in police custody is frustrating to them. about Ferguson, Missouri, and before that, and it's really going all the way back to Tulsa. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to them, and they have exhibited a remarkably small amount of aggression, except for little outbreaks here and there. But I think that in this particular case, when you have both mothers who have watched their children go into the prison system, their boy children go into the prison system one after the other, without any let up, and there's no chance of success that isn't going to happen absent Deus ex machina. Alongside suburban housewives in Riverdale, California, or Riverside, California, hearing that man call out for his mother, his mama, I think what happened is that a line got crossed, and I think it's going to be impossible for us to turn back. I don't think we can turn away from this. I think that like it or not, in the middle of the fact that our government is just absolutely collapsing around our ears, and despite the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic, the legitimacy of which is still in question. The jury's out on that still. And yet, we have all this wild stuff going on with National Guards and lockdowns and, God knows what kinds of confusion. In the middle of all this, now our country has to deal with its deepest and darkest sin that is probably the most enduring sin it's got outside of the one that we committed upon, and I say we in a general way, upon the natives of this land. Besides that, okay, and I don't mean that one is worse than the other. I'm just saying that these are our two deepest and darkest enduring sins. They will not go away until we make them go away. Is this issue with people of color? And now it's like, there are lots of people who their parents are Jamaican or their grandparents, so it lends their skin a swarthy hue. But so those are people of color. Everybody who's a person of color is a person of color, Billy, and they have all got to live under the curse that we allowed to happen when we just protected slavery. And in a little while, we're going to talk a little bit about how things like the Bible compare to video. Okay, they do. The Bible, stuff from the Bible compares to video in a lot of ways, and we'll talk about that and how that's being used to manipulate our minds. But in the meantime, please, your words, your thoughts.
Well, my thoughts, and Ted, I'm the ultimate conservative. I never owned any slaves, nor did any of my ancestors own any slaves. We had nothing to do with this problem. I'm so sorry that this happened. I wish it hadn't happened, blah, 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 okay? We have to solve this problem. We have to solve it. But I think the problem is more societal. Central Detroit. My own daughter-in-law, Jack, who grew up in the central part of Detroit, the people who grow up in South Chicago, the people who grow up in Brooklyn and Bronx and things like that, everything. We of this generation are not responsible for that. Now, we're also, and I'm going to make everybody mad, everybody's going to get mad, get ready. We're not responsible for saving you. Save yourselves. I grew up in Simmonsville, Texas, in a very, very, very poor part of Texas. My prospects when I was a kid was I would learn to steal hubcaps, and if I was real lucky, later I would learn to steal cars, okay? But I am who I am. No, I am who I am. I'm not going to sit here and cry gallant or crocodile tears because you can't make it. If you're too stupid to make it, oh well. I've got a son right now who's in a well. I spent the night at Ted's house last night because I've got a well in my family. I'm not going to sit here and cry over you. You figure it out. This is America. This is America. Mao Zedong is not coming over the hill to shoot you right now. You figure it out. You can be rich or poor or whatever you want to do. Don't tell me how bad it is. Please don't tell me that, because it just makes me mad. Ed, your thoughts?
I think that there's a lot of blaming going on right now. When I look at not just social media, but mainstream media, there's a lot of blaming going on. Now, some of this stuff is I think that if we're looking for somebody to blame, we ought to blame ourselves, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Look, the position that the people who are protesting the George Floyd incident are taking is unquestionably without it. In fact, it's not even questioned by the DA in terms of, you know, whether or not the guy's guilty of killing Mr. Floyd. I just think this blame thing is debilitating, and I think the number of conspiracy theories that are springing out of this is troubling. I mean, I really do think that a cigar is sometimes just a cigar, and I believe that very much. And I believe that in this case, we're looking at a cigar that you know, all these different things like this photograph or that photograph or this bit of video or that license plate designation and so forth and so on are all being used to turn this thing into something that it is not. It is not, for instance, a referendum on the campaign. Okay? Now, it turns out that the president has decided to make it that, which, you know, is that's on him. I mean, if that's what he wants to do, fine. If you want to inform other people around you how you truly feel about a certain subject that's a hot button issue, go right ahead. Be my guest. I mean, you know, guarantees a pretty short political life, in my opinion. It always has. You know, that's why they call them politicians. You know, it's because they lie about how they feel about stuff all the stinking time. And he doesn't do that. Because I'm not voicing any support for the guy in that. I'm just saying he doesn't do that. You know, that's one thing he doesn't do. But Billy, the people I think that are out there, America has many enemies. We have created many enemies, and I'm talking to you from the standpoint of a guy who's been in Costa Rica. I'm talking about it from a standpoint of a guy who was in Uruguay and in Peru, and I'm telling you, and in Honduras, and I just want to tell you that as an American citizen, it began to sort of, I don't know, you get used to flying first class, I guess, having privileges and information that other people don't have. It has a corrosive effect on your character, I got to tell you. And no amount of character building afterwards seems to take you back to where you were before. But I'm telling you right now that there are people who are profiting from this tragedy. They are using it to create chaos among us, which is exactly good timing for the campaign, don't you think? Don't you think it's great timing for the campaign? No matter which side you take.
I'm not going to get into the politics, and the reason for that is every time you get into the politics, you get into the hate. All right. If you say the word MAGA, MAGA, oh my God, oh, I want to kill everybody's daughter. MAGA. No, I'm not going to get into that. America is falling apart. It's falling apart. You Americans are fucked. Okay, F-U-C-K, I'm going to bleep that word out. Fucked. Because we're going to succeed. Texas is going to succeed. And we're going to be absolutely done with you Americans. Because you're stupid. You're stupid. Every one of you are stupid. Every damn one of you are stupid. You know,
Billy.
You don't know what to do. You don't know what to do, and you don't know how to handle this. So we today we handed you many cases of vaccine for this COVID virus thing. Will we get credit for it? Oh hell no! We won't get credit for it. We won't get credit for any of it. So we are going to succeed, and we're going to leave you people to your mess. Your thoughts, Ted. How about your thoughts on that one?
My thoughts on that one is that you have run off the edge of a cliff. Okay?
Quit talking.
Because why? Because you're not done yet? Really? Because you're really not done yet?
I'm jacking you up, Ted. You're
oh, I see.
You know what I'm saying. We had the Ebola crisis a few years ago. We came up with a thing for that, and we fixed it. Did we, Ted? Your thoughts? Did we get any credit for that? Not a single damn thing. Because
my thoughts are is that this show is not a forum for my emotions, nor is it a forum for me to be able to describe to other people who and what I am. It's up to them to make that judgment, okay? Absent any description that I might have of, right and wrong. But I also think this show is a forum for us to talk about this crisis which America is in. America is in a crisis.
We are in a crisis. We are in a crisis, okay? We are in a crisis. And you and I are in the center of the crisis. Where you're at in Temple, Texas, and where I'm at in Killeen, Texas, and we look around us, and we read the national numbers, and then we read the local numbers, and they're not the same. They're not the same. Your own wife, Donna, has never stopped shopping, has never stopped going out and mingling, and she's perfectly fine. I spent the night with you last night. A perfect night. We watched a movie. Oh, brother, where art thou? Everything. We have no
a great
problem.
movie.
Great movie. Why are we listening to these goddamn Yankees? Your thoughts?
Because they're not. Well, one reason is they're not Yankees anymore. Okay, a lot of them are second and third generation Texans, Billy. Okay, they moved down here from New York City or Chicago or Philadelphia or some other place, and they moved down here with a lot of money, and they established themselves in places like the Bushes over in West Texas. I mean, you look at that. All that shale oil stuff that's going on over there. That is that was the Bushes just buying. They didn't have a whole bunch of stuff that was going on over there at the time that they bought it, but they did. They had these guys are from Maine, and so what they did was they moved temporarily to Texas, in Midland, I believe, or Odessa, one of the two, somewhere there in the Permian Basin. And they established themselves as local warlords. Now, and by that I mean you've been to West Texas, okay? I've been to West Texas. Now, for all of you who have not been to West Texas is a desert that without anything in it. And so anybody who has to live there for one reason or another does so uncomfortably. Now, not so much nowadays, because since they started fracking that shale over there, quite a bit of industry has sprung up around that, and a lot of money has come out of that. So now you got all the outlet malls that matter, and you got anyway. Anybody who's ever been to a big town knows, what they got. So they got that. But for the longest time, Billy, you know that was just a place for horny toads and dried up old prospectors. And here comes George and Laura Bush, along with the blessing of Daddy and Barbara, and occasionally they have this one drop in or the other one drop in, and we're talking about the sons of a sitting president coming into the local library and giving speeches and the like, and to the local Boy Scouts and whatnot. That bought them a lot of political pull in West Texas, and I do mean a lot. And that was important political pull, because those people out there have, wait a minute, what do they got, Billy? Oh, that's right. They got oil, which equals money. Now, it doesn't equal as much money today as it did before somebody that was in control of the car steered it into the ditch yet again. But still, it's still, even so, the one thing about a poor world, it still needs its oil. Your thoughts, Billy Witt?
Well, my thoughts are, and from what I know, from the people I work with, okay, Texas has I know it's such small. Texas has enough gasoline to supply the United States of America with all the gas they need. Actually, when it gets right down to it, we have as much oil as every other country in the world, except for Russia. More than them. We don't need to negotiate with these Ruskies or these sand people or any people like that. We can support our country, and we can provide pharmaceuticals, and we can provide technological everything. We don't need these outsiders. We don't need them. This is the problem of the Bushes. This is what the Bushes did. And the Bushes aren't Texans. They aren't Texans, people. They are from Martha's Vineyard or wherever the hell they came from. They're not.
Hey, brother, don't be casting aspersions that way. There's a lot of money up there. A lot of money up there. So just be.
Come on, Dick. We know the truth. Me and my friend Ted.
Oh, right.
We grew up in Texas. We have driven through West Texas, where the oil derricks were not pumping, the pumps were not going up and down for years, and all of a sudden, in the last 2 years, the locks were knocked off, and the pumps were pumping again. And I don't care what you think. I don't care what you believe. I don't care what Rush Limbaugh tells you. I don't care. That's a fact. When you go from Lubbock and you go through West Texas, you see windmills generating electricity all hundreds of miles. We are very, very green down here. Very green. But we have to listen to you Yankees, and I hate to say that. Oh my God, I hate to say that. You Yankees.
Why are you saying that? Sam Houston was no supporter of the war.
No. Why am I saying that? Because it's true.
Yeah.
Because it's true. because it's true.
That ain't the spirit of America. I'm sorry, it's just not. So
well, Ted. Hey, Ted. I'm not the spirit of America. I'm the spirit of the Republic of Texas, dude. I'm a secessionary.
Oh, that's right. Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I forgot that fact, but I'm still gonna hold you to a higher standard than that. So.
I don't care what the Yankees believe. I know what is true. I know what we can do. We can form a republic in Texas, a Republic of Texas. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, there's another bunch of people up in Salt Lake City who want to form a spirit of the Republic of the Deseret, okay? Because, you know why? Because we're tired of your attitude. We're tired of what you do. We're tired of what you do. You know, we're tired of your nationalistic nonsense. We're tired of it. We're tired of it. And we're going to get our way. We're going to get our way. You know, I've got a couple of texts already since I've started this show and everything. You know, the Deseret, the Republic of Texas, the Republic of California, the Republic of Arizona, and similar. And we are tired of it because you people have failed. You're stupid. You're stupid.
You need to take a very close look at what you're talking about. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to encourage you to take a look at what you're talking about. You are comparing two very different areas. Now, I have always said, well, no, I haven't always said this. That's not true. But I have, for the greatest part of my life, said that what made me the most unhappy was to have to go anywhere east of St. Louis. Going anywhere east of St. Louis put me into the 19th century again. There I was, a 20th century guy, you know, and boy, the second you cross over back then, not so much interstate highways, we didn't have any, but once you crossed over into Fort Smith, Arkansas from Oklahoma, yeah, you were in a whole different world, baby. And you know, and you just keep traveling further east, and the further east, the more it is like a Tarzan movie, you know. It's like drum beats out there in that deep, dense jungle, you know.
Let me ask you a question.
A
simple question. Okay?
Sure.
When you were here, we were working on my dishwasher, which we're still working on, right?
Right.
And on your right hip, what did you have on your right hip? Just tell the audience what you had on your right hip.
I had a SIG 9mm Equinox, which is
yeah.
I recommend to anybody that needs a small carry weapon. You know, I definitely recommend.
Ted.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Okay, you're welcome.
Well, I know what you guys did. I know what CJ did. I know what Crystal did. I mean, it was a concerted effort. And really, if the governor had found a way to back out of it, he would have. But he couldn't find a way to back out of it. You know, and then the lieutenant governor later on came along and tried to X the thing. Tried to nullify the will of the people. And listen, this is where you've got to understand something, folks. And that is there's an intersection. I'm talking to our listeners now, Billy, because you well know this. There's an intersection between patriotism and conservatism and liberalism. Okay, patriots are liberals and they're conservatives. Now, the conservatives think they're the only patriots, and the liberals often think that they are the only patriots. But truly, patriots are made up of both camps. They're made of both camps. They, you know. I'll be the first one to admit that the people at the front of the bayonet charge may well be the conservatives, because those are the most aggressive of our kind. Okay, and it may, but the liberals will be right there with them. I mean, Little Round Top ought to prove that to you people. You know, think about Little Round Top and what happened up there with that Massachusetts school teacher. All right, you know, that liberal Quaker, led a bayonet charge down the side of Little Round Top and saved the Gettysburg for the North. Pure and simple. So, and I myself, and I myself have been in dicey situations that, you know, a lot of liberals would eschew altogether. They wouldn't have anything to do with it. Because a lot of liberals are snowflakes. But again, a lot of liberals are not snowflakes. They just choose not to lead the kind of life I live. But in any case, liberals and conservatives have got to be together here. You know, let's go back to talking about George Floyd. Let's talk about the speech that his brother gave. Now, I assume you listened to that speech. Or perhaps not. You there, Billy?
Well, keep talking.
Well, all right. Now this right here is the pièce de résistance to me of the conspiracy theorist movement, and that is that George Floyd's brother's speech proves that all these unfounded conspiracy fabrications have some kind of foundation, and that is wherein he calls for peace, and he says, stop destroying our property. You're destroying our property. You're not destroying the man's property or somebody else's property. You're destroying our property. Please stop destroying our property, and take this passion, take this will to survive, take this aggression that you have with you to the polls. Now that's what he said.
How much good do you think it's going to do, Ted? How much good do you think it's going to do?
I don't know, Billy. There's going to be a time. There's going to be. Okay.
No, seriously. These people have never voted in their life. Never voted in their life. So
I wouldn't say that was true.
Pardon me. What?
I was just listening. I was just reading a story about a man and his wife and his 3 children who went down to be a part of a demonstration. Okay, it was a peaceful protest, and what happened is suddenly people started sprinting past them in the opposite direction, and they were confronted by police who were firing tear gas and rubber bullets at them and their children, and they had to run for it. And they made it to a Starbucks where they sheltered in place. Yeah, I'm just saying. Okay, all right.
Man. Come on, man. Let's get real here. Let's get real here for a minute, okay?
I'm being pretty real.
They just went, no, come on. They went down. We went down for a peaceful protest and everything. And we got in with 1,000 people who were screaming and hollering like a bunch of Zulu warriors.
But they weren't at the time.
No, you're going to interrupt me. And all of a sudden, at 8 o'clock at night, when the sun went down, everything was stupid and everything. And this is our surprise phase. Come on, Ted. Come on, dude. Come on. They got what was coming to them.
I've done a lot of thinking about this, Billy. I've done a lot of thinking about this as a dad, because Father's Day is coming up. And so I've been thinking about this as a dad, and I've been thinking about this too as a person who, like you, got suckered into the idea that there was something out there more important than money. You and I both got suckered into that idea, and there's no letting go of it. I mean, at some point in your life or another, it just becomes something that you come back to, like maybe a foxhole atheist. You know what I'm talking about? So one way or the other, I keep coming back to this idea of a higher and better me. And the higher and better me cannot conceive that people shouldn't be allowed to protest the passing, a condition that is affecting their lives. Because I believe, and it took me a long time to believe this. It did. It took me a long time to believe this, which is just tells you how much empathy I had in my young life, which wasn't a lot. But it's true that most Black, especially kids, are scared to live in this world that we have provided over here in America, Billy. They're frightened of this place.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a simple question. This guy, he got stomped to death out in Minneapolis, okay? And I'm so offended, I'm so upset, okay? Right. Is it worth the riots and the burnings and everything across the country? Is he worth that? Is he worth that? Your thoughts, Dr. Slevenger. Your thoughts.
I think Jen Well is about to try to call in a minute, and I dare not merge the calls. So if whoever is taping this is listening, if Jen Well calls in, which would be in the next couple of minutes, please answer the phone and put her on with us, because we could use her voice. And that having been said, let me answer your question, Billy.
But is he worth it? Is he worth it?
And I'm weighing the word worth.
I know. I'm done with it. He's not worth it. He's not worth it. He's not worth it. Okay? This is a bunch of a crock of shit. The whole thing.
I don't know, Billy. I don't know, man. I think if one of us doesn't count, then nobody counts. I really believe that. I just do.
That's because you're liberal. He's not.
Well, I'm not ramming it down your throat. I'm just saying that's what I believe.
No. Listen, quit over talking me, please. He's not worth it. He's not worth it. He's not worth it. Okay. These things are always going to happen. I'm waiting on Jim to chime in, which I'm eagerly waiting on because I'm tired. Because I know she's going to come in. But the thing is, he's not worth it, Ted. He's not worth it. He's not worth it. He is a person where when he dropped dead at that City Street, his own family, everybody was just said, good shot. But nobody wants to say that out loud. Nobody wants to say that out loud. And everybody's going to hate me for that. Oh, my God. The United States of America should destroy itself. We should completely disintegrate. Everything should be ended. Everything, because this one dumb motherfucker tried to pass a point on that wasn't real. This one goddamn idiot. No, come on now. This one idiot tried to do that. No. We don't need this, Ted. We don't need this. I mean, you thought.
Well, I don't think anybody in the country needs this. I don't think anybody in the country wants this, except for the people who hate us and the people who are trying to. Now, you and I drove down through. I'm going to inform all you people out there of something that's very unpopular. I won't be very well liked for saying this myself, but when you go onto a native reservation, when you wind up on reservation land, and sometimes that's going to happen when you drive north in Oklahoma. In fact, when you drive around Oklahoma much off the interstate, you're going to be on reservation. you watch your six, boys and girls, because there's a lot of hatred for white eyes on the reservations. And I'm not saying that because I have any particular bad feelings about Indians myself. I lived among them for some time. It has more to do with a new culture that has taken root in the Native American culture, and this is how disconnected we are from, the people that we led through the Trail of Tears and the loss of the Cherokee Nation and so forth and so on. And that is that there's a whole other culture that has music, it's got art, it's got photography, it has writing and poetry, it has dancing. It's a whole other culture, and it is a culture that represents a form of nationalism or Zionism only for Native Americans, and not white people or Jewish people. So it's something to be aware of, is that you're surrounded by hate. We are surrounded by hate. Now, I can tell you that in Texas, for the longest time, black people and white people got along with each other. In my experience, and I know there's a lot of stuff happened outside my experience. I lived a very highly, I guess, very protected lifestyle, but nonetheless, inside my experience, there was no racism at all. I mean, none. There was no use of the N-word ever. There was my wife recently put up on an 8-year anniversary of one of her friends' babies, a picture of my wife holding that baby in the hospital just after it was born. And I mean, and so we have this, I would have to say, pretty much the same kind of friendships with people of various color, and I mean people from other countries and people that have been, have generations going back longer than most people's families do here. The whole idea of hating somebody because they're or hating them especially for something that they did, because in other words, it's like they do something bad and now that's enhanced by the color of their skin. Wouldn't you say that's the truth, Billy?
Pretty much.
Don't you? What?
Pretty much, yes.
Yes, I think so too. I think that a person oftentimes finds themselves in a position of either observing or being the focus of some kind of attack from somebody who just hates them because of who they are. I've had that happen. I was fired from a job in Georgia, okay, and another one in Akron for being a Democrat. That was it. That was on the complaint. I'm a Democrat. I was a Democrat. They didn't make any bones about it at all. They didn't say he was lazy, or in fact, I got great back reports from those people. But I was a Democrat, and that was enough. They just did not want a Democrat among them, and it gave me a feeling that I still can't describe to you. I still can't tell you what that feels like to be hated, and now I'm becoming attuned or attenuated to the fact that probably all over the world there are people who hate us. And you know something, because of our wonderful connection with education and history, we all don't know the reason for that. We all don't know why that is. We really don't get it why Iran might just hate our guts. Although, truthfully, that's a bad analogy, because the people of Iran would much rather have us and the Shah back than the Ayatollah. So I guess that was a poor analogy. My apologies to anybody that's listening. That was a bad analogy. So, Billy, am I hearing you, Jen? Well,
Hi, I am here. I called in a little late, and then got a call back. Yeah, I wanted to say something about hate if I could. Back in 1992, I had a friend that was killed by, they called them sharps. They were skinheads against skinheads. And that he was mixed Vietnamese and white or Caucasian. And so he constantly talked really bad about his culture. And, well, it was actually his mother from his maternal side. And he was murdered underneath a bridge across the street from the Olympia Capitol. And so that was something that I saw when I was 15. And they're coming to, now that I'm reading up on it, I found the history behind it. And we're all born with like barcodes that have us divided and labeled by our, gender, our religion, our just all kinds of different things, our the way that they categorize us as far as money goes or whatever. We're not just human beings anymore. We're all just a kind of a product that they use for money, profit. And hate has never got us anything. In fact, it's destroyed us. But that's something that changed my life forever, was to know that I was the last person that saw him before he was killed.
So hate has a real weight or constructive presence in your life.
It does. It does, and I mean, we don't have a true version of a history, so we don't know why people hate us for just being us, for being like located, whether or not we believe in what they believe or the narrative or whatever they're trying to portray. We're automatically hated because of where we're from.
Well, that's true. I find myself being hated. I found myself being hated on Indian reservations. I found myself being hated in I hate to say this, so I won't. But there was a place where I went to school for a little while while my dad was teaching at UCLA, and it was a private school, and the kids in that private school were just dreadful. I mean, I've got to say, any kids at school age, when you're around that 6th grade, 7th grade age, they're dreadful, wouldn't you have to say?
They're bullies. They're mean.
I mean, they kind of shape us into the things that we are when we become adults. They have a lot to say about it anyway. Yeah, they got a lot to say about it. And then, of course, our parents who have no experience whatsoever with psychology or sociology, they have no way of recognizing what it is that's going on with us. And what follows is Vietnam, just something that we muddle through until the end when the last survivors are hanging on to the runners of the helicopter. I mean, that's really what it is, really. Launching yourself. I mean, that was for me, and I've seen it happen in so many people's lives. I've had so many patients whose stories were the same. It just seems like that's a very common experience in America.
And the horror that also follows that is that true history is dying with these veterans that saw the truth, that saw what really happened. That because you can't rely on the truth in history or definitely anything that's written. So the true history is dying with these.
You gotta. That's all we got, Jen. This is why. Listen to Jen, folks. What she's talking about is the importance of this stuff, and you're saying I don't believe this stuff because it's so polluted, and I'm saying it's all we've got. So we've got to preserve whatever there is, and figure out, through reconciliation, what the future of it's all going to be about.
And our parents,
I don't know how to do that. No.
I'm
just a blogger.
You're just a psychologist, or but I mean, a true genuine person that cares and shows empathy and compassion, which seem to be erased from a lot of people's collective conscious. That is, that it's just history repeats itself. Our parents, they put us in school, and it's like Pink Floyd, The Wall. There are just bricks in the wall that just completely recycle itself. There's not really much truth behind anything that they teach us in school. I can't remember except being bullied, in school, and being on time, and the anxiety about tests, and anxiety about do I look okay?
And you're not just talking about students when you're talking about being bullied. You're not just talking about students.
No, and I remember going to the school counselor at a 7th grade saying my family's dysfunctional, and they're like, "Where did you learn that word?" No, I don't. I live it. I live it. But my dad he got his bachelor's degree in psychology in Washington State, and I experienced it on that level.
Eugene Fodor, that was the head of his department, was Eugene Fodor. So your dad got an excellent degree, is all I've got to say. That guy was the industrial and organizational psychologist, administrator of the greatest. He's like the Bo Jackson of that job. I'm not kidding. He was terrific, and the guy wrote guides to cities also, so Fodor's guide to just look it up on Google, Fodor's guide to Athens, and you'll have Eugene Fodor went there, lived there, had a great time there, partied with the best people there, and wrote a great guide to the city, while he was there, and he managed to do that and be the best administrator of industrial and organizational psychology that ever existed. Anyway, I'm sorry. That's a cover wagon story. I said I wouldn't do that. I apologize. Where you were before was you were talking about the inherent unfairness of being born in one state or another. Not like Washington State or Illinois State, but what kind of household? Yeah, what kind of household you're born into?
Right, because that affects us. That affects how we're formed, is what our parents dealt with and what our parents' and it's by generation. So we bring that into school, and it's almost. It's not to go there to learn different things that we need to use in our life. It's okay. Are we poor? What kind of music do we listen to? Where we're from? Because I remember being in 4th grade, teaching a girl that came over here from Mexico. She taught me Spanish, and I taught her English, and I was very fluent in it. And but I lost all of that. It's because when we're younger, our brain's able to absorb more of that and retain it. If you don't use it, you lose it.
as kids. Yeah, you learn it. I mean, you learn it quick as a kid. You learn language quick as a kid. That's just something, and that's true because in an evolutionary way, our brains are made to follow a certain path, and one of those paths is to activate that part of the brain that learns language. So if you teach your children more than one language growing up, they will have a broader perspective of the world than they would otherwise, because different words, we just trust the translations that we're getting. And translate this from English to whatever, Dutch or whatever. So it does, but the thing is that we're missing some really important cultural point, in the translation. It's not there. It's not supplied along with, the literal translation.
Also, one more thing to point out too, I tried to relearn it when I was in college, and in their syllabus or syllabi, it depended on what part in the culture. Like, for instance, they have a different way of saying something that you say if men are not present or women. They changed that, and I don't know if I don't remember learning that as a child, but like if a woman walks in, it changed. No, I don't remember.
At all?
No, not at all. Not at all. I just remembered I was able to communicate with her.
Then how is it you make the connection?
Just because I don't remember it by any kind of gender. I just maybe it was something that back then I saw people as equal, and it didn't matter what their gender was. Right. But becoming an adult, being conditioned, it's always divided by gender, male or female. I always put on forms that it says race, I put other human race, and they don't like that, but I do it anyway.
I always said if you ever saw Jesus at the head of a flock of human beings, that they would all be under the age of 15. We lose our innocence about the time we go from the 6th grade to the 7th grade. It's really the 5th grade to the 6th grade, but there's a lot. But the kinds of bonds that you forge in childhood are so often very resilient and tough. But the pressure really gets cranked up in the 7th grade. This is where the influencers really have a lot to say about who's going to be what. And, I recall going through that, and my family dealt with it differently. I had a sister who went the preppy route, and I had a brother who went the preppy route. And I had another sister who went I'm just going to ignore this culture around me until I can get away from it route, and which is the route I chose to take too. Although I did interact with other children in as much as I participated. Well, I was on the debate team. I loved debating because Jiminy Cricket, you think adults are stupid. I mean, their progeny are even stupider. And so it was a lot of fun. Although it became repetitious, kind of like pounding a tent peg in the ground over and over again, but still fun. When you talk about being bullied by other kids, it's really different than talking about being bullied by the institutional people, don't you think?
Yeah, that's another dimension. I think it's totally different.
Well, let's go there. We're really talking about equality in America, so this is part of that conversation, I say. And somebody can call in and join us. I mean,
what's the definition of equal? Because I think it's been watered down and diluted quite a bit. So, what is your
deep down in your gut, you know that my definition of it and your definition of it and another person who's gone down deep in their gut, it would be their same definition of it. And that is equal. In other words, there's no privilege for you because your granddad was some judge that did a bunch of favors for somebody 50 years ago.
Right. So it would be
That's
fair
what
to
I'm
say the
talking
same.
about.
Everybody should be treated the same. It didn't matter where they were born. Didn't matter who their parents were. Everybody has a set of universal rights that is taken with them, no matter what country that they're in, no matter what state that they're in.
So, in the light of that, I want to say this, and that is that, so according to my definition of equal, if you want a shorter version of it, equal is Barack Obama, a black man being president, and unequal is all the resistance he got before he became president, while he was president, and after he was president, and probably after he's dead. There's going to be this little cloud like follows Pigpen around, of dirt. It's just like a little tornado of dirt. That's going to follow him around because money is going to pay for it, because money doesn't want equality, because money wants to protect itself. And even the memory of Martin Luther King cannot really be celebrated by people. Not really. We're not really on the same page in this country about Martin Luther King. We don't understand that after Bobby and after Teddy and that the natural guy to kill is Martin Luther King, because he's the next guy in line that's talking about unions and equality and equal protection under the law and all that BS. So they killed him too.
It's a mirage. It's an illusion. It's something that people are misled to believe that exists, because it does not exist. We're not equal. You have you're classified by how much money you make. Are you middle? Are you upper? Are you lower class? We're all the same.
Absolutely, man. I'm telling you, what do you do for a living is the first thinking thing.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Bobby. After that, the very next thing out of their mouth is, what do you do for a living?
I get age, sex, and location. And then the second question, what do you do for a living? Oh, so that classifies us as human beings, what we do for a living? What if I'm homeless?
Your age and your sex are immediately available via visual location. In other words, I can locate you visually, and I know your age and your sex. I mean, right, relative to whatever I think. Okay, and then which has something to do with my reaction to you. But then I ask you what you do for a living. Now, here's something you could say. You could say, well, I'm a hostess at Chez Ramon's, and I happen to know that Chez Ramon's is someplace where, it's not unusual for a person to spend $600 on a dinner tab for 4 people. It's where lawyers bring their, clients and so forth and so on. So that gives me one impression of you, and it leaves open a wide area of possible thought. Hostesses live a different kind of lifestyle than most people, so now there's this wide open field of thought. Whereas if you say, well, I teach French at the high school, now, and I'm married to a guy that's a football coach over there. Now, I got a whole different thought process. If you say, well, currently I'm homeless, I have a different vision of you, and which really, to me, this is perfect. You and I can have this conversation. I've been wanting to have this conversation with you forever, and that is homeless people. I want to talk to you for a second about homeless people, because there's going to be so darn many of them coming up pretty darn soon, and actually there are becoming a lot of them. If Billy was awake, he'd tell us about the ones that he saw in Austin.
It'd be a dark. It's
Billy,
going to be a dark summer. It's going to be. There's
it's going to be a dark
closures.
summer. Yes, it's going to be a dark summer. Yes. Talk about it a little bit, sister. Talk about dark summer a little bit.
Well, oh.
What have you seen in Fort Wayne?
Well, in Fort Wayne, there's been a lot of curfews imposed. So I'm not sure that has to do with some of the things, but there's been also a lot of.
Are you obeying the curfews?
There's been a lot of
Are
job
you
cuts.
Are you obeying the curfews?
No, I don't even know what they are.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
I don't know what they are. I've been reading a lot about it, and there's been quite a bit of people harassed that I know of. But
well, you saw where they shot that little 14-year-old girl in the crotch with a paintball earlier, didn't you?
No, I haven't. I unplugged from the Matrix, and I get very poor internet signal. And so.
Oh, you're in internet hell.
So, yeah. So anyway, communicating has been really rough, but I came back, so now it's back to reality, but I know that.
Virtuality.
Yeah, back to virtual reality. I want to go. I haven't really noticed much as far as homeless. I think that we got a grant to help with homelessness. I don't know if it's going to be utilized properly though. But one thing that I did notice, I don't think it has much to do with it, but I think in a way it does. I haven't seen many people wearing face masks anymore. So I don't know if the current situation of the rioting has cured coronavirus or COVID-19, but
well, before we veer into COVID, I want to talk about this homeless thing a little more. I want to ask you this. What are the feelings that you have in your guts when you come up to an intersection where there's somebody who's standing in the median begging?
I look at it and I have two different perspectives of that, because I've been with somebody that was panhandling, and he made like $300 the first hour. And I was like, wow. But, and then I see somebody that what is hard for me is to see a veteran that's homeless. There should be no reason for them to be homeless. Or like, for instance, there was a time before we went to the lake, and there was a couple with, I think, maybe 4 children, and they were mixed. And the cops were harassing them like they were loitering, but the father went into the store for something, and it was like, just by the way that they looked, they were judging them on being homeless. And you can't, just people are often, I don't know, they judge somebody just by the way that they look, and, oh, well, this person must be homeless, or this person must do these certain things because of the way that they look. And you can't always judge a book by its cover. That's for sure. Definitely in a history book. But as far as homelessness, and the fact that there's so much, the unemployment rate is so high, and how are people going to afford their homes?
Yeah,
I mean, how can they afford?
You get the sense that a lot of those people really are homeless, you know. And
yes.
And Billy saw in Austin, in downtown Austin, people with upscale tents and families with nice lounge chairs, you know, spread out around, who obviously were evicted from their homes I thought it was June 22nd that they were supposed to lift the ban on that, but some people might be getting ahead of the curve for all I know. I have no idea. I haven't gone out and interviewed anybody on this, and I'll tell you the reason for it is that I feel so. This is hard for me. This is really hard for me. It just is. I feel so complicit through my indifference, over which I have no control. I have no control over my indifference because I've been neutralized by having hundreds of thousands of people dumped in on top of me that dilute everything that I do. So as much good as I do in the world, I wake up in the morning, I try to find something good to do, and this is good, and it builds character. But I'm going to tell you something right now. When you see the amount of bad that's being done, and it's just offhand bad, it's just like indifferently. It just comes out of nothing more than you stepped on top of somebody's throat and killed them. Over what? I don't even want to know what the answer to that is. I don't want to hear it because I already know what it is. I know why you step on another person's neck and kill them. I know why you do it. I felt that feeling myself before, but I didn't give in to it. There's a difference.
Well, it makes me wonder if those are if they're actually the real people that they're claiming. Unless, I was reading something that if somebody had just murdered somebody, who would look up at the camera for a Kodak moment? It's unless they were trying to make a statement like. We've always, had a war with African Americans and Caucasians for good reason, that we don't truly know 100% of the truth. Even with the truth, there's always questions like, why is it that way? And then something else comes up, and then more of the truth comes up. Even just through Indiana, there's a lot more that I'm coming up with of the truth of, Native Americans. Those are the two cultures. And I don't even want to say it because I don't know if it's 100% true.
Well, right, exactly. Determining just how firm a ground you're on when you're arguing for or against the thing has become a really difficult thing for people due to the insufficiency of trust that one might have in their source of information. But still, we have something that has been lost in this society, and that is cognitive immunity. You and I still, and I think Billy, when he's awake, we have cognitive immunity. In other words, there's some part of our brain that automatically recognizes BS and rejects it. Okay, so in the case of George Floyd, we have committed two crimes, not one. Well, the first crime that we committed was that we allowed the thing to happen in the first place. If the Police Chief Association of America had some kind of real leadership from the very top, and I mean the very top, and if there wasn't a very top, then by God, whoever's at the very top, create a very top for that this one purpose. And they should have gotten together and said, look, we are going to take every precaution not to kill an individual that is in our custody. Now there would be those people from the hostage rescue teams and the SWAT teams and the black ops guys and this and that, and probably just plain old rednecks that would have come up and said, and maybe just some misled people, that are not rednecks, would have come up and said something like this. They would have said, well, now you're taking away from our police the ability that they have to protect themselves against the nature of, true violence, which is what they confront on a daily basis. To which I would have said, that's untrue. That is not true. I am not saying that what we're going to do is we're going to change the rules of engagement to eliminate this kind of thing altogether. And we're smart enough to do that, and we can keep policing right now under whatever rules we've got, but let our departments know, let our lieutenants know, let the captains know, let the watch commanders know, let the guy on the street know that change is coming, and it's coming right quick. So that in and of itself would provide a damper while a plan was put into place. But we didn't do that, and we should have done it way back at the very least after Ferguson, don't you think? I mean, after Ferguson, so that's one crime, and I'd like to talk about that crime just for a minute. But I'd like you to do the talking.
Can I say one thing also?
I want you to.
Here specifically in Fort Wayne, there is a bunch of unsolved murders. The prosecuting attorney is just kind of, it went under the radar. In fact, there was a big controversy going on whether or not she should still be prosecuting attorney when there's so many unsolved murders. And I think there's a lot more ethnic groups being murdered by the cops than just, black people. But that's just a way to keep the hate, keep the division. It's not just, it shouldn't be just about what one race is being killed by. It's the fact that just police brutality in general.
Well, the sad truth of crime and the word black is that black on black crime is the predominant form of crime that is, inflicted upon black people. That is just a truth. Now, there is a case to be made, and I'm going to make this case right now, and that is, and anybody who doesn't like it is willing. I'm willing to answer you if you call in, have one way or the other, willy-nilly. I'll be happy to have a one-on-one with you about this. But this is the case I want to make, and that is when you're born into a family where there is no adult role model that is not a criminal anywhere, as you're growing up. And if the people who are teaching you facial expressions are not the same person day after day, minute after minute, if it's different people, okay, then, so that you can properly associate an expression with an emotion. And if a lot of the people who are there doing that with you are people who have serious problems, maybe short-term delusional stuff associated with drugs or maybe more, but if you got this string of people that are teaching you what your emotions are and what you should be feeling and what you're going to be rewarded in life for and what you're going to be punished in life for, if those are all people that are not your mom and dad, then your life's going to turn out different. It just is. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't some dream family out there, a mom and a dad that can't have kids, they want a couple of kids or more, and they want to raise up this great family and they're capable of it. That's I believe in that. I have to believe in that. Kind of like a little bit of hanging on to that Mr. Whoever Goes to Washington thing. But essentially, I just don't believe that there's that many families like that, because I don't think there's that many adults that have that much attention span or dedication to and love that leads them to give up their own life to make another life better. Your thoughts on that as a mother?
I think it's an attachment problem, or losing the feeling of being emotionally attached with somebody in order to form a relationship, where we learn from typically our parents, our mothers, that the babies shortly after birth, they start mimicking facial expressions. That's something that's learned very soon. And without that, I think our whole ability to form and trust is compromised. And at a young age, if say you don't have any discipline, I had both parents, but they didn't really work with me as parents. That when I'm looking back on, I had the TV, I had the sitcoms, 8 is Enough, I had the sitcoms, Facts of Life, Silver Spoons, and I wish my parents were like that. And I had to come up with my own role models, and it was difficult.
Are you saying that you did come up with your own role models?
I had to create my own role models.
Yeah, well, Durkheim said that's kind of natural, though, so I did too. I mean,
yeah.
It's not just trauma. It's really there's this thing. It's really hard for humans to separate from their families as offspring. It's just hard. It's because we've been together for so long.
Even at a young age, and even animals that have been taken from their moms too soon, kittens, and even cows have had emotional display of crying, similar to our crying, like really high, like sometimes high pitch meows, and even the mother cat will go and look for them. We had a set of kittens one time, and we separated them a little bit too soon. I think by a week or two, and the mother cat would go through the house and call for her kittens. It's the same as humans. We're no different than them. And the whole thing with separating at the border, the whole thing from separating for any kind of reason, like say, parents enlisted to go to the military.
Let's not actually identify various places where this happens, because it happens so many places. Like,
right.
I mean, you could give the example of those English kids that had to leave the big cities that they were living in because of the bombings and go live out in the countryside with whoever their parents could find, their mothers, because dad was overseas fighting or dead, So yeah, this whole separation thing. And what I want to come back to the homeless thing.
That's a whole nother. Well, okay.
By way of that, okay.
Okay. How about I'll switch? I can switch it up and say, well, what about the people that are separated for being homeless? Like, for instance, in the shelters here in Fort Wayne, the fathers have to be separate from the mother and children. Why can't they be together? That doesn't make sense.
Because you don't have a state-funded shelter. You have a shelter that is funded by a religious organization.
Or a separation.
But this is the problem. The state, and this is the problem that we're all facing. We're going to have to do something about it, folks. Sooner or later, we're going to have to do something about this, and that is that the funding for essential things like shelters are causing what Jen is talking about. Now, many of you I know will be saying to yourselves, well, if it is such that the children and the mother must live separately from the father, because that's the way that that the church wants to handle it, and we're sure as heck not going to drain the pockets of people who have money to pay for people who haven't really proven to society that they're useful, because which is proven by the fact that they're that they're unemployed. Am I off track here anywhere, Jennifer? I mean, have I skipped off the track anywhere?
No, and you're right, and it's all, it could be their funding. It's follow the money. It was interesting to think that, at one point I did lose my house, and so I thought, well, I could take my kids to a hotel. You had shelter, you had heat, you had water, you had food, but that wasn't quite good enough.
Listen, it turns out it's a whole different thing than what you thought, man.
It is, and if you even look up the word homelessness, it doesn't necessarily, when people think of it, they think of somebody underneath a bridge that is drinking
you
and
have
eating their pants
you
at
have
night.
to have a lease or
Yes.
a mortgage agreement, one of the two, or a title. One of those three things must exist, or you're homeless.
I don't have any of that. I live with my boyfriend, so I guess I'm homeless.
But the CPS would say you were homeless.
Right.
Yes.
So
They come in and they do a home study on you, and the first thing they say is she's homeless. That'd be at the top of the report.
And which means that there's more profit coming in for the state. And instead of helping me and reunify and get me back on track, they'd rather oppress me to where I'm dependent on them. I'm more controlled that way.
Well, I was talking to Billy about how he and I had got suckered into being believing in that there were things in life that meant more than money. Okay, and so now you're actually playing on the field inside the stadium that I was talking about. The nature of your agenda as a mother and the nature of an institutional representative are going to be very different. They're going to be very different, but they are both going to be self-serving. And this is something that people just don't really understand, is that if you're up against somebody who has no right to be up against you on this particular issue, that doesn't make any difference at all. It has nothing to do with nothing.
No. And I'm just curious who comes up with all of these statistics and all of these numbers where, you're scored by how much money you make and your genes, or, if you're the color of your hair, the color of your eyes, how much you weigh. It's all on the outside. There's nothing, my shoes, at a funeral, they're not going to be like, oh, wow, she had a whole closet full of shoes. It's what kind of impact did she have on humanity and have on society? And because money is not going to matter when it's time to check out, when your time here is done, they're not going to look at your bank account. They're going to look at what you've done for society and for humanity. So.
Well, I think that a lot of realists think this. They think there are other things in money. There are ideals. I'm talking about people who have given them their entire lives over to money now. They'll think there are other things in money. There are ideals. But those ideals, as Plato teaches us, are beyond our reach. We may as well try to reach our hand out and grasp a star. And to some extent, they're right, because you hear the expression "money can't buy you love." Now, this is a thing. Sometimes I get irritated about this because the first thing is that people often what happens is we get lost in this 8 definitions of love or whatever it is. I took a seminar on it when I was getting my license, so I know that there's several different kinds of love, and I can name a few of them. But it doesn't matter to me. I understand what real love is. Real love is knowing in your gut that you're not going to betray the person that you're in a relationship. Knowing that you feel love is when you see somebody that you never met before, and nothing is going to keep the two of you from touching each other in intimate ways inside the next 12 hours. Nothing. And love is a pure emotion that you feel when you look into somebody's eyes for the first time as an infant. That pure love, I know because I've experienced that. I've held two children in my arms, and mine were the first eyes they looked upon. And that feeling, Jennifer, is unlike any other feeling in the world. The purity of it is insane. And I've experienced other kinds of loves too. But the main thing is that despite the flavor of love that you're getting, it's kind of like soda water. It's still love. It doesn't matter if you're drinking grape soda or Fanta grape or a Coca-Cola, you're drinking soda water. So it's the same that way.
Right. Love. I think there's different kind of levels of love. I mean, you can be in love. You could just love something. You can have unconditional. You can have, temporarily love, but it's definitely something.
Have you? Now you just tell me to keep my dirty thoughts to myself if you like. But I want to ask you a question, and by the way, I'll be happy to answer this question for you if you like, whether you choose to answer or not. And that is, have you ever just been insanely in love with somebody?
Yes. I have.
So what's it like? I mean,
what it was like, it not made me. I wanted to become a better person.
Uh-huh.
And so it wasn't really for them. It was for myself, because I saw the good in somebody else, and so they helped me in turn see the good in myself. It was something that it just changed my whole perspective of life.
Changed your life?
Yes, and because I can't say my parents didn't love me, but they didn't really show me. So it was something that, wow, I was actually shown. But yes, it changed my life.
Well, now I'm comparing that against my own experience with love, and the hard thing for me is that I've actually loved two people, which is I don't understand how that can even happen. I really don't. In fact, if you want to know the truth of the matter, I've loved three people. Now this is hard to explain. I have been with other people that I didn't love, but
I think that love is something that it's not something you say, it's something you do. So it's a little bit harder to describe. Because everybody has a different way of showing it.
It's a maelstrom of destruction for me. And the reason being that now it's not now, okay? Now it's this steady, everyday, same number of steps to the mailbox kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? But before, when it was like crossing some unknown body of water with sea monsters and unknown storms everywhere, it was a different kind of thing altogether. And it exposed the worst in me, and it exposed the best in me, which is not necessarily a good thing.
No, it's like you're conflicting with yourself or something.
Yeah, I am. I'm conflicted about it.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But I think if it goes wrong, or if we feel betrayed, then it could turn into a really ugly thing. that.
Hey, you know what we ought to do?
What?
I think we ought to turn back toward what we privately think is going on with this Floyd thing, because you have yet to discuss that. I mean, the whole time you've been on with me, we haven't talked about that, and I really want to know what your take on it is.
Well, I got to say, when I first watched it, it was on mainstream media. And the first little bit that I got from it was something that I reacted out of anger. And that is exactly, I think, what the intent was. There wasn't anything else that came about until the next day. And then people start putting things back together. But I think that it is a way to start the riots, and it's kind of caused a ripple effect.
What do people have to gain from the riot?
Well, I think that they were paid. I wouldn't even consider them protesters. They were more like vandalists, because that wasn't a peaceful protest. If you go back and I've looked at clips from Martin Luther King's civil rights.
What's the upside of that? What's the upside of that?
The what? The upside of that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, why do that?
Well, because they want everybody to react in emotion and distract. I think it's a manipulative mechanism that they're using to distract us, the masses, of what they've got going on. And if you take a look at Joe Biden and his history with racism and things like that, it often makes you wonder, is this part of their narrative? Doesn't
the president have just as much to gain? I mean, if this is like slavery, see, what I wanted to discuss with Billy back when he was awake was this. And that is that, when slavery was at issue, okay, both sides of the issue, the abolitionists and the pro-slavery people, used the Bible. And they even used the same phrases in the Bible to justify their cause. So, it becomes apparent under those circumstances. No need to fast forward to deep fake video and this and that. I mean, it's just a simple matter of putting out cognitive snares, don't you think?
Yes, for sure.
It's meant to trap you, The minute you step in it.
It'll trap you in an emotional state in your own head. You become a prisoner with it. And like Dean and I, we were talking on the way back, that he said, well, this is kind of something that you could use, say, if you were traveling in your mind. You put together the conclusion with very little details. And you think, before you know it, I had in my head thought out the whole scenario of what had happened from very little detail, because I wanted to put it together to find out what was going on. So.
Well, let me tell you. Let me give you some personal experience, okay? And I want to know how close I get what you're thinking with what I'm saying.
Okay.
Now, when I was a psychotherapist, I used to have something called I used to have to use something for diagnosis called the DSM. Okay. Now that's a diagnostic and statistical manual, and there are various permutations of it moving forward, and so for let me also say there are two kinds of testing that are largely done on people where they're going in for diagnostic reasons. What's wrong with me? I got this or that or the other going on. One of them is idiographic testing, which is essentially like an interview. That would be an idiographic test of sorts. A thematic apperception card, where they show you pictures of things and you make up stories. An ink block test, which we're all, pretty much familiar with the Rorschach. So there's that kind of testing, and then there's nomothetic testing, which is like the MMPI, which if anybody's ever taken one, they don't ever want to take another one because the damn thing's like 30 pages long. And, you have to answer several questions more than once, more than twice.
Are you talking about, is it similar to a psychiatric evaluation?
It is it's always used as part of a psych eval because, hey, that's the way we've been doing it since 1952. So, nobody's bothered to reform the psychotherapeutic industry in decades and decades and decades. And this is because Ronald Reagan got the bright idea of taking all the people that had been living in state hospitals and state-supported nursing homes forever into the streets. You're free. You're no longer a ward of the state. And now you got a bunch of people that have no skills. They're dependent on medications that they can't get because they don't have any medical insurance, and their only way of survival is to use whatever semi-secure spots they can find to live in while they live like buzzards on what society throws away. Okay, this is their only option in life. Now, I want to bring this back to George Floyd. Okay, the same kind of hopelessness and despair that assaults people who find themselves truly homeless. Now, I'm not talking about, like you said, you knew a guy that was a panhandler. I knew a guy who was a panhandler too. He was just a regular guy. It was just a side hustle for him, but he made good money at it, Mm-hmm. And he said, you'd be surprised, who I learned this from. It's people that really need this money more than I do, but they haven't got the courage to go out there and make themselves vulnerable to a passing public, which, as a psychologist, well, not as a psychologist, but as a psychotherapist, and as a sociologist, and as a person who dreams about this stuff sometimes, it occurs to me that what he's saying is that we just can't stand what we see in the eyes of other people. There are some things that we just can't stand it. We'd rather die than to see those things in the eyes of other people. Pity, compassion, disappointment, hatred, all the stuff that you would see if you were sitting on that corner. So on that corner for a while, I decided I'd do it, and I did it. And I got to tell you, I wouldn't take $1 million to do it again. Okay. But I wouldn't take $1 million for the experience either. So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no, the gentleman, the veteran that I was with, I was helping him hold the umbrella because it was really hot, and he actually was a paraplegic, so he got a lot more sympathy doing it than somebody that they considered able-bodied. And this is their terms, not mine. So I don't know if that had something to do with it, but.
Well, I am really. I'm gonna tell you, when I get a news flash of some kind or another, on Facebook especially, okay. If I see something on there and it's inflammatory, immediately the drawbridges come up. Immediately I release the crocodiles into the moat, immediately I put the archers on the walls. I get the hot oil ready, over the gate. I'm ready now because I know I'm fixing to be assaulted by an idea. And this idea, at times they're so clever. Like, did you read the article in the Post where they were, it was either the Post or the Times, where they were talking about, this is what they were talking about. They were saying that in 2016, the way that our election was affected was by the use of bots, okay? In other words, they had, I don't know how many hundreds of bots, but many hundreds of bots, and each of these bots had bought up Facebook time, a lot of Facebook time, to reach a lot of listeners, okay, or viewers or whatever. And then they started with the memes. I'm sure you remember the memes, I do.
Yes.
And the posts, the posts, which were unabashedly hateful, just unabashedly hateful, and then a group of people calling themselves the deplorables came along, and I remember thinking to myself, now this is the legacy I want to leave behind, is that that I rode for Quantrill's Raiders. In other words, I am instantly understood that this was a bunch of people who wanted the South to rise again, realized that the South is not going to rise again, and are bitter and angry about it. And they're bitter and angry that they got old. They're bitter and angry that they're not getting laid. They're bitter and angry because they smoke pot but vote against it. I mean, there's no end to the bitterness and anger that they have. And they have a tremendous influence over the political life in America. They just do. I mean, a bunch of people in South Dakota can decide how it's going to be for all the rest of us. You know what I'm saying? It's wrong. Somehow or another, we got to find a way of fixing that. But until then, we really need some way of people to be more cordial and accepting. And you don't have to be loving of one another if you don't want to be. You don't have to be forgiving of one another if you don't want to be. But just how about let's be respectful of one another? I mean, don't you think that it's not love that the world's short on, it's respect?
How about this? Learn to love thy enemy. And I remember one of our past conversations, one of the many lengthy ones that we have, and with a lot of true content and just genuine meaning and just wanting to see things go differently. Love thy enemy is not literally meaning to, go hug somebody that's going to, that has a knife behind their back. Seeing things from somebody else's perspective. What would you do if you were in their situation? And how about accepting that other people are not going to think things like you do? The same way, they're not going to feel the same way that you do. And accepting them for being different and for being who they are. And you got to have the ability to see things from their perspective. I mean, you're in Texas. Well, I'm in Indiana. Things are a little bit different here, and even we're born from different generations, and we can still come to some kind of a compromise if it's something we don't agree on. We don't agree on everything.
I learned a lot of stuff from you. I really do.
And that is the collective conscious. We need to bring that back and definitely get rid of this hate. That's one of the biggest plagues of humanity in society today is hate, because hate stops everything.
I think it's a condition. I think it's a natural condition that we find ourselves in, though. I don't think it's an artificial thing. I don't think it's something that's manufactured or passed down, although certainly it's passed down from,
exactly.
But it is also a naturally occurring, look, aggression comes from frustration. That is the first rule. I mean, I'm not going to be like Billy and make everybody take a quiz later on this, but it really would, serve your interests well if you would write this down, or just so that you, and read it occasionally so that you keep it in mind. Frustration equals aggression. Now, in the George Floyd case, you got frustration on two sides of the issue. You got one group of people who are very tired of seeing their own people and other people who are white, seeing African American people and people of color murdered by the police. And that was an exceptionally brutal thing too that the guy did. So you got that group of people, but you got another group of people that are sick and tired of black men engaging in crime, like trying to pass counterfeit bills, and then there are a lot of people who fake physical distress in order to avoid being put in handcuffs and arrested, because they're scared. They're scared shitless when they get to the police station. They know that what's fixing to happen is that they've just now lost control over a significant chunk of their life. All right, that's it. So,
you're at the mercy. People are at the mercy of these cops, and it's not just about white versus black. It's about police brutality. It's about them, with excessive force, and they're. But
we cannot dismiss I'm sorry. Please go ahead. I can remember this. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
I'm just saying we cannot well, you weren't, and I cut you off. I'm really sorry, but I mean, you've had a lot of conversations with me, so you know how I am. Yes,
Ted. No, much love for you. No. I mean, it's one of these things where, it's just frustrating because people don't seem to want to try things different, and they're set in their ways, and everybody's just, I think it's the fear. And with this new coronavirus or COVID-19, everybody's still, it's going to be different. I don't think people have to stand 6 feet apart. I don't even pay attention to the signs, to be honest, because there was like one-way arrows in the aisles at Walmart, and only one entrance, and it was like an obstacle course just to go shopping.
Right.
So we have that. There's so many different crisis and chaos going on right now that I don't think anybody knows where to start.
But why? Why is that? What in the hell are we paying these people for? I mean, to me, I'm going to be really honest with you. I think that our current president is the ultimate expression of the establishment as it exists in America. Okay? So if you go right there to Fort Wayne, Indiana, you have a government that is acting a whole heck of a lot like our federal government. It's like there are people with power, and everybody else has to suck up to them, or they're gone.
My turn. For instance, the governor of Indiana. Well, we've earned the privilege to go up another level. Okay, when do we have to earn their privilege? When did it start that we had to earn a privilege of going outside of our homes? I can understand people that are sick being quarantined, but people that are healthy, that's tyranny. That is absolute.
Listen, compliance. Okay, it is all about compliance. We wouldn't even have a school system at all if it wasn't for our government's recognition that we would need a compliant society.
That's
the campus marches.
Hey, Ted, schools are not back in, so I guess they weren't really essential, right?
Let me tell you something right now. When I was in school, it was so physical you wouldn't believe it. Okay, you were going out for track, you were going out for football, you were going out for basketball. You were going out for whatever sport there was that you had some kind of talent for. All right. So that was number one. There was a big focus on physical education, and in addition to all that, there was a phys ed class. Okay, and the phys ed class wasn't no joke. I mean, it from early on, it was stuff like dodgeball. Okay, I mean, go ahead and laugh about dodgeball, ladies and gentlemen. It's not funny, when some big guys are slinging those hard basketballs and bouncing them off of you. Okay, and so you gotta respond with violence of your own. In fact, you have got to become a violent person to survive school. At my age group, there had to be a certain level of violence in you, a certain willingness to meet violence with violence, or you were not going to make it through the school. I'm telling you, we're going to make it all the way. And you certainly weren't going to get what you wanted. I mean, just surviving in some cases was good enough. And God help you if you're gay. Oh my God! Now, they made being gay such a crime that just knowing somebody that was gay and being friends with them, or is like aiding and abetting the enemy. So, bullying had to have originated sometime around the time that I was in school, because they were so damn good at it. And for me, it's like I was telling Billy earlier in the show, I don't grasp the upside of racism. The reason being that I know for a fact. Now, if a black person approaches me and they're dressed in nice clothes, and I don't mean a certain kind of clothes. I'm just saying the clothes are nice. All right, they're clean. They're
coordinated. The pants are pulled up. They're not hanging all the way down the kneecap.
I'm not gonna wanna. I'm not. If your lifestyle is such that it leads you into places where your pants are down, then we probably don't want to know each other anyway. You probably don't want to know me. So, the thing is that the way I see it is that first off, it didn't look to me like. Now I'm going to go back to George Floyd for a minute, because that really is kind of what we wanted the focus of this to be about. And the advantage that is being taken of by the media in terms of coverage. And I believe that we both agree that both sides of the issue tend to make hay out of this. You got one side that is the Al Sharpton gang, if you want to call it that, and then you got another side that is the who's against this movement the most. It's hard to know. But the people who are hating on Antifa, for instance, the people. I mean, I just want to say that I've seen mob violence, and way before Antifa. I saw mob violence in Detroit and Boston. Burn, baby, burn. This was back in the '60s, and we were talking about big race riots. And these were not coming that long after some big race riots that happened starting in Tulsa and moving their way east toward Atlanta, okay, going through St. Louis and practically reducing the place to ash. And this to me, this thing with George Floyd reveals something to me. I hear George Floyd's son out there talking about vote, saying vote, take your passion to the voting booth and vote. And I'm thinking to myself, that sounds like
political.
It could be. It does. It politicizes the guy's death, which in my mind trivializes it. I find it so offensive as a liberal. I can't even begin to explain it to you. But don't you think George Floyd deserves something better than that? I mean, I do. I think maybe we could talk about reconciliation instead. How about some reconciliation? How about both sides sit down and start talking about this? And let's leave the extremists outside where they belong. Let them picket the damn thing with their signs. You know, while we talk about, well, you know, while somebody with some sense in their heads starts talking about, you know, what is causing this to happen and how can we make it stop? There's people who know. Look up a video online, Jim. It is the police chief of Houston talking about this issue, okay? And the guy is so on point, it is unbelievable. You know, it's just unbelievable.
Right. There was an actual black police officer that I think he was from New Jersey, and he gave his thoughts about this. And he said usually a police officer would only put their foot on a suspect or whatever you want to call them, somebody in their custody, only if they're not compliant. Well, as far as I could see, he was compliant. So, I mean, you got all these different perspectives, and unfortunately.
Well, let me explain why they called him non-compliant. He was in handcuffs. You saw that, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Now, they were fixing to put him in the back end of the police car, and he's looking directly. You see a shot of him looking directly into a security camera. Now you need to take your screen. Hopefully you can put it on something that's got more pixels than your phone, and enlarge that screen. And what you are going to see is a highly improbable image. I mean, it's one of these things that I think was stuck in there because all the security camera footage was 24 minutes ahead of time. Okay. Which I mean, I'm not saying there aren't unanswered issues here. There are unanswered issues here. There's no question about it. There are unanswered questions that, and some of them are compelling. They get an itch under your skin, like the one I was just talking about. But the truth is that not a single one of them is probative of a single conclusion. And so until you have that, what you have is a mystery. But regardless of the nature of that mystery, we know who killed George Floyd. And we must make that person pay for his crime. We must make the person who stopped the bystander who tried to intervene, we need to make them pay for their crime. That's an enhanced crime in my mind. That person was trying to, affect some kind of citizens out, whatever authority a citizen has in this country nowadays, which is a dubious thing, I guess. But still, nonetheless, that's what she was trying to do. She was trying to get the guy to stop. And another cop pushed her down on the sidewalk and then pushed her up against the building. And then you got two other officers who were standing around looking as if they've been assigned guard duty on, a herd of sheep. And there's nothing
They were
going
protecting
on.
the crime scene. They were protecting so the crime could occur. It was almost like they were guarding in order for the crime to be complete.
And if you want to know the extent to which the police brutality has reached the people of Minneapolis, just look at how compliant the people are. They're all scared to act. You see, you got a bunch of people who want to say something like this. Well, look at all those people standing around with their cell phones taking. Look at this, is typical, isn't that? Just a bunch of millennials. That's That's exactly right. A bunch of people standing around with their cell phones doing nothing. Well, let me tell you something, baby. Do you want to get shot? Do you want to go to jail? Do you want to wind up in police custody if you're black and you've been protesting the oppression and the brutalization of another black man? Is that something you would care to go through?
No.
Me neither.
That's the same thing that people would ask, during World War II. How can all these German people just let this happen? Well, how can we let this happen? And we know about this. This was filmed. This was put all over, almost all the news stations, all the social media, Facebook, Twitter. There's no excuse why things can't be done now.
Mommy got dinner. Go get dinners. Come on. Go get dinner.
So, what about, I think people take one big, huge tragedy, like, you have Rodney King, and you have different series being shown on Netflix, and they take it to the extreme, and then everybody watches it, they get shocked, and then they continue on with their life. Is that how this is going to go down? There was somebody said something very interesting the day after that it happened. All of the burning of the businesses, the destruction of property, and the looting. Is that what his death was about?
I can't feature that. Can you? I mean, really? Would you really? Let me ask you a question. If you were a looter, now I know you're not a looter, so this is, but I'm asking you to put your empathic resources to work for a minute and answer this question for me, all right, as an empath. And that is, if you were a looter, why would you loot in this particular instance? If you were one of the looters that's been involved in these riots, why would you be looting?
Well, the majority of them are African American, so they're already outraged that their culture is what has happened to them. But it's not. People have lost the focus that it's not just about white cops killing black men. That is something that they use to their advantage. I would say, because I was angry, to show a point that, hey, we'll take the power back, even if it means destruction, and to get some kind of justice, even though there really isn't any justice in that. There would be personal gain that would come from it. Oh, I got a 60-inch TV just by looting after somebody broke all the windows and there's no electricity, so the alarms will go off, so it won't alert authorities. Plus, they're probably down at making sure people are social distancing or eating donuts or something. That's a reason I would, because I would be so upset, and it would just be.
It would be an expression of your feelings.
That's what I was getting at. Thank you. It would be a way of letting out some of that pressure of being angry. It would be an expression of my feelings.
Well,
that people just that often get ignored. The
fact that this has so many faces, because clearly there was gang activity involved, and clearly there was just mob activity involved. Because of that, because of its many-faced nature, we're going to sweep it under the rug, Jen. And it's just clear to me, we're going to sweep this under the rug, and we're going to pass some kind of an act that's named after George Floyd.
Yes.
And it's going to prohibit policemen from doing some horrific thing that anybody in their right mind knows not to do to another human being.
So really, it's taking the focus off on his death and put it back to dividing the races. It's white versus black.
Well, this is a huge win in my mind for the mind that thinks that black people are inherently a bad thing. And there are people out there who think that black people are inherently a bad thing. All right, and so this is a huge win to them, because what it amounts to now is they can say things like, hey, you know what? This guy had amphetamine and fentanyl in his system when this happened. And so now the color of his skin and the fact that his toxicology report came back with bad news on it, if you were expecting your son to go to college, you know, is somehow another. Now this is somehow associated with each other.
Plus, also, what about the whole that they worked together at one time at I don't know, I didn't catch what kind of establishment it was, but they both worked security. So were there drugs there? You know, it starts kind of stereotyping.
Probably
I said, well, wait a minute here. Okay, just because he tested positive did not mean that he actually ingested it. What if somebody gave him some? You can't just look at it from just your first instinct.
The media is being complicit in this. Look back to when Dershowitz and that bunch got Jeffrey Epstein off, all right? Where was the media when that shit happened? I'm asking you, where were they? I'm going to tell you where they were. They were all in the cafeteria taking a break, every single one of them. And the same thing is happening here. The very same thing is happening here. Where is the toxicology report on the cop? Where is that toxicology report? Are you going to tell me for an instant that you ever arrest anybody for murder and don't take a toxicology report on that individual? Seriously? You don't get you don't have them do a toxicology panel when you arrest somebody for a felony. I mean, can that be possible that you would be that complicit in incompetence, just voluntary incompetence? I mean, why? I don't even see why you would do a thing like that. But apparently that's either the way it is, or they just don't feel like informing us about what his toxicology report says. So there's either not one, or they're not telling us what it is.
Well, they definitely won't show us, because that would reveal some truth. So we're going by what somebody else does. So it's hard to, it's almost, they leave so many holes that your mind, I think, wants to put things together like a puzzle, you know, and we're missing so many pieces, but our brain's trying to fill in the gaps, and it just creates more emotion and more anxiety on the future and the violence, because I think it's increased the amount of violence. That there's actually innocent, white business owners that were trying to just protect their businesses, and they were shot or were injured, or there were children that, because of the curfew that they imposed for the riots, a 6-year-old child got maced. I mean, that's excessive. And that's just what they catch on camera. All right. Yeah.
I mean, come on, you gotta know that there's hundreds of incidents, where they just overuse their force, and that is exemplified to me by the leadership, which is hostile.
And not to mention, I mean, how many police cars do you know that say it just has the city or has the country or the state? I mean, and
well, I gotta tell you, in this case, there's plenty of evidence that the city of Minneapolis printed up a whole bunch of plates for their police cars that say police on it. All right, and this is just to simplify that you can see it's already marked as a police car. It's got police car markings on it, so they don't see any need to identify any individual car other than the car's number, which is on the top of the car and on both sides of the car.
Right. And, I think a lot of people don't know that, and I found out a couple of days that there was actually 4 officers involved.
There were.
But in the picture, when you first see it, it only looks like 1. And like they keep changing what's going on, and it's to create more anger and frustration, which is a secondary emotion.
The press is tearing this up. The mainstream press is I think you have 2 different kinds of mainstream print out there. Of course, down here in blogger land, it's a bit, you get a different view of everything. But when you look at the mainstream press, you get one of 2 things. You either get really quality reporting, which is where they stick to the facts.
Okay.
They stick to the facts.
There's also there are 2 protests about that, and then there's also some kind of a vigil. I think it's like just a march, and then after that, there's another some kind of a peace thing that the sheriff and the Fort Wayne police officers have all organized, and they're supposed to go from downtown at the courthouse to Martin Luther King Bridge. They built Martin Luther King Bridge.
Now, is this going to be an individual protest staged by the police in support of George Floyd? Okay, all right. So now all I have to say is, good on them. They reversed their position. They went from being threatened people who were willing to use violence to people who are willing to stand up and protest for the very same community, which is law enforcement, that needs to stand up and say no more of this. We're not going to do this anymore.
But
we're going to leave these guys out. They're out there. There's street monsters out there, but we're going to either root them out or we're going to make sure that they never make contact with a guy like this.
But a lot of the vandalists, though, are not from here, so they instigated a lot of the. No
doubt about it. America has enemies from within and from without, Jen.
Terror, international or domestic and foreign. So
that's right.
More domestic than foreign, though.
Well, if anybody's ever been up to Kalispell, Montana, or Olympia, Washington, you will discover this to be true. You will discover that you are living among what could truly be considered a kettle of fish, very comparable to the Deep South in say 1848 or not.
Oh yes, and in fact, going back to my friend's death or murder, come to find out there's more evidence that suggests that the police officers were involved in it too, because
there's
not
just
only
an enormous amount of that,
and they're
not dumb, are they? They're not dumb. They're not idiots. They're not.
No.
They're truly dangerous people.
And just as they had killed my friend, and they went through and they shot another person at a convenience store. And so it was all premeditated and stuff because we had all met these guys before. But and it was a lot. In fact, one of them are up for being released from prison. So, but there's been other protests, I think about a year or two later, and there was a bunch of different, this kind of stuff in Olympia, Washington, where they were destroying downtown businesses. And these sharps, or they were supposed to be skinheads against skinheads, actually had murdered him in a tunnel that was like really close to, it was across the street, but it was maybe about 2 blocks across the street from the Olympia, Washington Capitol, that finally Washington State put a hate crime law. It took them that long.
Don't you think though that really all of the conspiracy stuff that we're seeing now, I think is political, and I think it's both sides of the spectrum. I think it's Democrats and I think it's Republicans both. I think they're both making hay while the sun shines. George Floyd is dead, and they get to spread different messages. The Democrats get to spread the message that the police are violent and white and black people are disenfranchised in this country, which is absolutely true. And why the hell we're not talking about that every day instead of just when a black man dies, I don't know. But that's the way it is. So we're talking about it today. And the other thing that they're saying is that the right has a say, the Republicans have a say, and their say is that, well, black men are counterfeiters and black men are thieves and black men have methamphetamine and fentanyl in their system. And black men are really big and menacing. Look at this one right here. He looks like a rhino, I mean, it's just, it's horrible. It's like this is the second crime that the establishment has committed against this man. Not only did we allow him to be murdered under our watch, but under their watch, but the establishment has now allowed his corpse to just lay out there in the open and be eaten by whatever thing comes along and cleans up roadkill in this country, because that's all the guy is. He's roadkill. And it's sickening. I wish I had a better message, but I don't.
It's something that somebody took a tragic, devastating. I mean, I can't imagine even how his family feels. His murder was exploited. They're exploiting this, whether or not he was innocent, whether or not he had a counterfeit money. Okay, any race could have counterfeit money. You could get it by accident. I knew somebody that had a $50 counterfeit bill by accident. It does not profile them as a criminal 100%.
Hey, maybe the guy wasn't used to the influence of methamphetamine or amphetamine and fentanyl. Maybe, but let me inform you of something. We've got 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, we got to stop. So
okay.
Let's decide right now, since we've actually got 6, what do you want to do with the next 5 minutes?
So what would be something that one person that is not, you can make it as outrageous as you want, something that we could start today to have some kind of work towards a solution, because you hear about all the problems of this, how bad is this? What about the media never reports anything good anyway, but what's something that we could do? Little, big, it could be huge, that you think? What's a good start?
I think that the very best thing that could happen is that the people who are producing this show and the people who listen to this show and produce other shows could encourage people to watch Riverdale and get some kind of, leave behind the drama and the plot and the this and that, and look exactly at how it is that people treat each other in this series, and start thinking about ways that they can use their media power to get people to start treating each other that way. Because in Riverdale, what they talk about is things in an emotionally honest way. They say, you hurt my feelings when you hurt my feelings, or you're abandoning me when you're abandoning them. And not like in our real lives, In our real lives, we don't do that. I mean, were you able to do that? I couldn't. I tried, I think, but it never happened.
No, I didn't.
Is it happening even now? I mean, you're at 40. Do you have any more power, to change the way people are treating you?
Although, Although, yes, I mean, you have control over the way you react. Just like we all do to some point, at least right now. But I think maybe, offering somebody a hand or sometimes even just listening to people, it helps and understand maybe how we could relate better to other people. My thought is to see yourself in their position. What would you do? What would you do if you were George Floyd and that was happening to you? What would you do if you were just the
I would have done what
were...
George Floyd did. I would have begged for my life.
And he did, and he cried for his mother, and that really got me. And he said just because he could say I can't breathe, there's a certain amount of air that you still get, and that should have been enough of a signal for somebody to contact, first responders for CPR, or they could even, you don't just stand there and just let somebody die like that.
Well, I think that both of them were acting out a script, but I think they were acting the script out in a way where they were doing rewrites along the way. And and I think it's sad, that the mainstream media, or really Americans as a whole, can't get their head around the idea of talking about this stuff. We just simply can't talk about the way we treat each other, because to do so is to jeopardize our position as anchor of this, or whatever your position is.
There was a news reporter downtown Fort Wayne that was questioning these two individuals that were sitting in front of the SWAT team that were protecting, that were told that they could not go further. And there was a guy that came on and that begged for the news reporter not to leave, because they were afraid that they were all going to be gassed, and they're going to go and they're going to shoot people up if they leave. Please don't leave. And the reporter actually got a dose of tear gas. And they
were targeting journalists. It's true. They
right,
were
and they also
not just there.
Right. And then I saw this straight up, breaking news, and usually it doesn't happen. It was like the comfort of the studio, and their makeup's just perfect, but it actually showed her truly like have an emotional outbreak, because they wanted her to stop the camera, but she didn't. They just moved. And so there's some journalists out there and some media people, in the media that are doing that, but whether or not you're going to see them again, that's the question.
Yeah. Well, you and I are at a time where we need to retire, because they need to have a few minutes to transition over to another show. So I'd like to say thank you, Jen, for showing up.
Thanks.
You were godsend, and Billy, I appreciated the time that we had together earlier. And to anybody who is listening to this or will listen to this, this is Jen Well and Brother Theo, and representing Bill the Butcher, Brother Theo again. And we'll see you guys later. We'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.